Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels, and as always, folks, my morning cheers. Merry stupid o'clock to one and all. Before we get started this morning, the usual disclaimers. First off, for this gigantic train wreck of a report, you are going to see a link to it in the description box. It is one of the many pertinent articles in regards to the Judge Rotenberg Center that have been compiled by Lydia Brown, also known as Autistic Hoya. That massive archive is also linked. You also have the video that I did all the way back in April. That's a compilation put together by a former staff of the JRC with all the media clips that goes over the story of Andre McCollins, which happens to be the same story of a lot of the victims of the JRC. We have the templates lovingly assembled by ASAN, also known as the Autism Self-Advocacy Network, where they did all the work for you, where you literally just have to fill out your name and click on your senator. Now, bleh. What this template is about that you will see linked under the description box is basically a ban on improper restraints and use of aversives in school. And what are aversives? Aversives are punishments for behaviors in regards to people with disabilities, particularly those with neurodiverse disabilities, particularly those with autism. Or, as I prefer to say it, in my very screw you PC culture, this is what we want to be called, the autistics. Also linked in there is our change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition, because these folks have gotten away with it and gotten away with it and gotten away with it for longer than even I've been alive. They've been getting away with it since the 70s, folks. They've had numerous investigations which turned up horrific material, yet somehow they seem to always win on appeal. The only real protection these students have is this place to be closed down and for their states to actually place them in places that are actually going to help them. By the way, folks, if you're new to all this and you think, but these are the worst case scenarios, guess what? There are worst case scenarios all over the world. Yet somehow, Massachusetts is the only state that seems to allow torture as a remedy to it. Think on that, all right? Okay, so without further ado, we are going back, obviously, to that horrible world known as the JRC, taking up where we left off yesterday in Judge Bernstein's train wreck of a report. It's going to go over, again, changes made by JRC. I am willing to bet a good majority of this doesn't even have anything to do with the subject at hand, but I digress. Now, after this video, folks, please hold on. I am going to do a JD video this morning since I have a little bit more time on my hands because it's Sunday, and I forgot today was Sunday, and I still set my alarm for way stupid o'clock in the morning. Speaking of, when we are speaking about the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of, as well as seeing video surveillance footage in clips of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you have young children present, please, folks, use the headphones. Also, if I stumble over any of my words this morning, I have been struggling real hard since my meltdown of last week to be able to keep on an even temper. Pretty much the smallest things have been setting me off, and literally my sales have been suffering for it all this week thus far. So A, wish me luck, and B, if I stumble over my words, please, my apologies in advance. I need a mulligan, all right? Okay, so here we go. As a result of the August 2007 incident, Delayed GED consequences are no longer permitted and must be carried out as soon as possible after a behavior and never more than 30 minutes later. Was that change made, Judge? Because here's the thing. If that is true and you must do it immediately, why are the students still required to wear the GED to bed? Riddle me this. Because if this were true, there would be no reason for students to be wearing these devices to bed. They can hardly be having behaviors in their sleep, right? How someone can possibly be this naive, who knows? Granted, they are paying him to be naive, but come on now, Judge. You can't expect me to buy this when I know for a fact they require students to wear those things to bed. Logic, folks. Logic. Staff members cannot administer a GED for behaviors they did not witness, and the in-house monitor, a new position created following the 2007 incident, must personally witness all GED applications at residences. Is that a fact, Judge? I have to call bullshit. Because, again, why do they have to wear the GED in their sleep? And considering you all have cameras everywhere, what you just said can be determined very loosely. So they might not have had to have actually seen the student have the quote-unquote behavior because they have DVR to pull up that shit for them, and then guess what they have to do? I call bullshit. Major bullshit. Moving on. The staff was retrained on the fact that the DVR monitoring staff can never instruct direct care staff over the phone to administer GEDs. Is that a fact? Because Jennifer Masumba's story and the other accounts that back her up and her own behavior sheet that she has graciously let us see begs to differ. Pre-verification procedures are no longer used with the exception of a handful of students. There you have it. Again, it's an example of feeding this judge lip service and telling him what he wants to hear, of him doing zero investigations to find out if they're telling the truth. You really think a school that has literally killed 6 people and managed to cover it up and get Massachusetts legislator to do their dirty work for them is really going to tell you the truth about that? Just saying. DVR monitoring must be notified immediately after a GED application, and DVR must then notify the student's treatment team. Bleh. DVR monitoring must also be notified of all GED misapplications, and a GED trouble report must be completed. Judge, tell me, what do you consider a misapplication? I would be interested to know, because you all seem to sign off on non-compliance, shocking a student that gets out of their seat, shocking a student who stops work for more than 5 minutes. So what would you consider a misapplication? Inquiring minds would like to know. All GED applications are now logged into an electronic database and reported in staff supervisor end of shift reports. Okay, so the fact that they're counting them makes it better? Wow. Administrative staff also receives a list of all GED applications for the past 24 hours. Again, Judge, really? You have seen the damage these devices do yourself, and you are still going to defend them and sit there and say, but if they were used properly, you can't use a device that is built to hurt people properly, Judge. They shouldn't be used at all. And it is absolutely insane that you continue to try and treat especially autism, with behavioral treatments when it's not a behavioral disorder. Just saying. It makes no logical sense. Moving on, before I go into an ABA rant. Current GED application policies and procedures. The DVR Monitoring Office is not authorized to call staff and instruct them to consequent GED behaviors or give additional numbers of GED consequences. If that's the case, why does the DVR Monitoring Group exist? Isn't it their job to monitor and catch these behaviors in order that the student might be shocked? Isn't that their job? If they are no longer allowed to authorize shocks, why do they still exist? I'll tell you, folks, and this is what they're doing to cover their own ass. The DVR Monitoring Office still pinpoints behaviors. Just now they have their in-house, not a non-biased party, but an in-house clinician to go ahead and tell them it's okay. And I don't believe those clinicians should ever be allowed to practice medicine. Whatever happened to do no harm? Moving on. Only a clinician can authorize GED applications beyond increments of 10 per day. What did I just tell you? The DVR Monitoring Office is still doing exactly that. They are still authorizing people to shock those students for literally existing. Just now, they're covering their asses by having their paid-off clinicians give them the go-ahead. The clinician will notify the supervisor as to how many additional applications can be made without further authorization. Is that a fact? However, the additional amount can never exceed 10 without requiring additional authorization. The clinician then notifies the assistant to the director for programming and monitoring of the student's GED authorization. So you're covering your own ass. Anybody going to sit there and tell me that the clinician won't act like they gave authorization even when they didn't? We already know this center is beyond corrupt, among other things. If you all really think I'm going to buy that the clinicians that they have bought and paid for that work directly for the center, who depend on this center for their livelihood, is going to say anything other than go ahead, then I've got a river in Egypt I can sell you. Moving on. Employees are instructed that they should never follow direction from anyone if it is inconsistent with the policies and procedures that the employee has been taught during orientation training period or through other means. Is that a fact? Well, your policies and procedures already allow torture, so you have to forgive me if I see that they have much to be desired. You don't treat us like human beings. You don't think of us as human beings. You don't even think of us as animals. You just see us as monsters to be tamed by any means necessary. Even if you have to beat it out of us, or in this case, shock it out of us, starve it out of us, sleep deprive it out of us, scare it out of us. Employees are told to be alert to the possibility of hostile persons making unauthorized calls to JRC and opposing JRC supervisors. See, what this individual did, and they're putting all the blame on him and the staff, by the way, as we've seen time and time again. You all created this culture of torture and absolute authority, where nobody, apparently even your employees, have any form of autonomy, where even the staff is influenced on a semi-regular basis. And then you wonder why they just do what they're told. God. All GED applications must be reported immediately according to protocol. Pre-verification procedures are not used. Each GED application must be verified at the time the behavior occurs. See, they're not actually changing anything. All they are doing is getting that token authorization so they can continue with the sadistic practice. That's all it is. And why do they do that? They do that to get the law off their ass. It is stunning to me that the protections afforded to us by the ADA, federally, I might add, has been continued to be disregarded in this particular state over and over and over again. All right, we'll move on to delivering GED consequences tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up because I do have that other video that I have to do. So we're just going to say, in conclusion, folks, what the JRC did, what they quote-unquote changed, is they tightened things up so that they could get that extra authorization from authority in order to justify their torture of vulnerable human beings. They haven't really actually changed their policies or how they view their students at all. At all. At all. No. What they did is give it the veneer of authority. So what do I mean by that? It means that they are trying to make it seem okay by throwing in that they are speaking with someone who is in the medical community. Well, the medical community does a whole lot of unethical shit, especially in this state. So all they're really doing is giving themselves an official veneer to continue the same abuse and torture against vulnerable people that they have always done. And why do they do it? Well, there's a few reasons. I do believe Matthew Israel was trying to use us as a means to, quote unquote, to use ABA's quote, build a human from the ground up, and then use us to build his stupid utopia that he dreamed up back in Harvard. A Harvard degree does not a genius make, folks. Matthew Israel is my exhibit A. But others, they're there to power trip. Any staff member that stays there longer than a month, I have to believe, on some level, enjoys what they're doing, which is sick. It makes my skin crawl. May nobody ever date them, God. I don't even want to think about that. Okay. Don't want to go there. Yeah, no, okay. Also, folks, you have to forgive me for being extremely cynical, but I hardly think them getting an in-house clinician on their payroll to authorize their abuse gives them a get-out-of-jail-free card here. No, Judge. No. Get it through your head. Adversives are abuse. Say it with me now. Adversives are abuse. One more time. Adversives are abuse. Nobody deserves to be punished due to behaviors that come from their disability. Okay? It is literally come from their head. Read up. What does neurological mean? And for the love of God, when on earth in Massachusetts did they decide it was a good idea to treat a whole host of disabilities and mental health issues with the same kind of treatment? That is completely insane. Healthcare and treatment is always best when it is catered to an individual's very specific needs. When it is done like this, all it does is cause trauma. And speaking from personal experience, folks, the only thing that trauma does is make your particular disability's traits that much more distinct, that much more noticeable, and that much worse for the disabled person. And on those notes, I'm going to go ahead and close out for this morning. We don't get very many views on this channel, especially for this subject. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So folks, please this morning, feed that algorithm. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. Now again, folks, we are going live on this channel on Monday, 4:30 Central Standard Time, 5:30 Eastern Standard Time, and about 10:30 or 11:30. I don't know. I haven't been to the UK forever. But I believe it's either 10:30 or 11:30 UK time. Please come by, folks. We've gone from having 25 people alive to literally about 7. Come by. We talk about interesting things. We let off some steam. And we have various topics that we go over. Last week, you all missed it. We actually had somebody who worked for Customs in Australia during the Australian incident with AH and the freaking dogs. So, for those surprise moments, folks, that is the reason why you need to come by these lives. All right, folks, I do appreciate your time this morning. And as always, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.